The latest roadmap is here. Yes, you heard that right. Today we will cover full roadmap from version 6.4 all the way to 6.7, because this stretch of updates is shaping up to be one of the most carefully designed periods we've seen in such a long time. We're talking about new characters, expected reruns, how these patches connect to each other, and why so many players are already planning their pulls months in advance. I'll go step by step, explain what's known, what's still uncertain, and why each version matters. Even if you're not someone who follows updates every single day, by the end of this video, you should have a clear picture of how 6.4 sets things in motion, how 6.5 and 6.6 quietly prepare the ground, and why 6.7 is already being treated as the payoff patch. If you've been wondering whether to pull early, wait for supports, or just save everything, this roadmap really helps put things into perspective. But before that, a quick word for our sponsor.
You can actually save up to 25% on latest banners through Lootbar. Personally, I lost my 50/50 and I just bought the 6,480 Genesis Crystals pack for $76 instead of $100. That's an instant $24 saved. Not only the discount, but the top-up process couldn't be easier. I entered my UID, selected my server, and within 2 minutes, the crystals arrived in my account. Plus, the double bonus for first-time purchases has been refreshed with the anniversary, so you can take advantage of that too. With over 100,000 satisfied users with 5-star rating, it's really my go-to choice for both personal top-ups. And here's a bonus. New users get an extra 10% discount, while returning users can save up to 5%. You can find the link in the description below or in pinned comments, so don't miss out.
Now, let's start with version 6.4, because this is where the entire sequence begins to make sense. Version 6.4 is expected to run from late February into early April, and almost all of the attention here revolves around Varka. He's finally stepping into the playable roster as a 5-star Anemo Claymore character, and more importantly, he's designed as an on-field damage dealer. That alone explains why there's been so much discussion around him. Anemo characters usually sit in a support role, or act as enablers, so having one that's meant to stay on the field and deal consistent damage feels different from what's been discussed around his gameplay. Varka's kit leans heavily into normal and charged attacks. The core loop is very direct. You activate him, you enter his combat state, and you keep attacking. There isn't a lot of complex setup or constant swapping, which some players really enjoy because it feels active and straightforward. At the same time, because he's a Claymore user, hit lag is still part of the experience, and that's something people have been split on. Some like the weight, others feel it slows him down. In terms of strength, the general takeaway is that Varka performs well at baseline, but scales much harder with constellations. A lot of the discussion you'll see focuses on higher constellation damage, which naturally leads to mixed reactions. Some players like having a clear power ceiling, while others are less excited when peak performance is locked behind heavy investment. Team-wise, he fits best in Anemo-centric setups and Pyro teams, where Pyro units help stabilize fights and keep enemies controlled. That pairing comes up often, especially when people talk about consistency rather than raw damage. Banner-wise, the current expectation is that Varka appears in the first half alongside Flynn's, while the second half shifts toward Cryo, with Skirk rerunning and Escafir joining as a 5-star. The official livestream for this update is expected to happen next week. That stream should give us a much clearer picture of the banners, events, and final adjustments going into the patch. Things like exact banner order, event rewards, and how some of these kits actually function in practice usually become a lot clearer once the live stream happens. So if you're on the fence right now, especially about pulling early in 6.4, it might be worth waiting just a little longer. Once 6.4 wraps up, we move into version 6.5 around mid-April, and this is where the tone changes. On the surface, 6.5 looks quieter, but it's actually one of the most important setup patches in the roadmap. The key new character here is Lasana. She's expected to be a 5-star Geo support tied to Nodcry and the Adventurers Guild, with a background rooted in life sciences and exploration, rather than combat spectacle. Her role isn't about dealing damage, it's about enabling teams. Recent discussion around her kit points toward Lunar Crystallize. Alongside Lasana, version 6.5 is also expected to introduce Lohen to the standard banner, and he's discussed as an Electro unit rather than Geo. If that standard placement holds, it also comes with an important long-term implication. Each year, the game has introduced a free standard 5-star selector around major version milestones. Following that pattern, Lohen would likely become obtainable for free in version 7.0 through that free anniversary selector, rather than requiring polls on a limited banner. Reruns in 6.5 are still uncertain. Names like Raiden Shogun and Mavioka come up often, but nothing is locked. That uncertainty also fits the patch's role. 6.5 isn't trying to dominate attention, it's laying groundwork, both mechanically and narratively. Then we move into version 6.6 in late May, and this is where things start to tighten. The major new character here is Nicole, a 5-star pyro catalyst tied to Hexen Circle lore. She's expected to function as an off-field support, focusing on buffs, survivability, and team enhancement rather than personal damage. There's also recent discussion suggesting she may include a shielding component, potentially positioning her as a pyro shielder, though this part is still under question and not fully established yet. What makes Nicole interesting is not just what she provides, but how she provides it. Current discussion points toward her effectiveness depending heavily on team conditions. If your team matches what her kit is built around, her value increases significantly. If it doesn't, her impact drops sharply. That design reinforces the idea that she isn't meant to be a universal support, but a character who rewards deliberate team building rather than flexibility. And that brings us to version 6.7, expected in early July, which is already being treated as the destination for a lot of players. The centerpiece here is Sandrone, a 5-star electro or cryo catalyst designed as an on-field damage dealer with a very distinct gimmick involving a combat robot. Her gameplay identity is strongly associated with physical damage and superconduct, a reaction that hasn't had much attention for a long time. That alone explains why she's generating so much interest. Whenever an older reaction suddenly becomes relevant again, it usually signals a deliberate shift rather than a coincidence. Sandrone isn't just about raw damage. While she appears to sit at the center of a specific ecosystem, cryo teammates help enable superconduct, physical resistance shred becomes important again, and suddenly, earlier supports start to make more sense. This is where Lasana's placement back in 6.5 starts to feel intentional rather than random. The support arrives first, the payoff comes later. On top of that, version 6.7 is widely expected to feature a Columbina rerun in the same patch cycle. The pairing has already picked up a nickname in the community, and the hype around it isn't just about power, it's about narrative weight. The timing also fits historical patterns. First reruns often land several patches after debut, and this window lines up cleanly. While banner order isn't confirmed, the idea of Sandrone leading one phase and Columbina anchoring the other feels consistent with how high-profile releases have been handled before. When you step back and look at versions 6.4 through 6.7 as a whole, the structure becomes very clear. 6.4 introduces a long-awaited on-field DPS and refreshes interest in specific team types. 6.5 and 6.6 quietly narrow the field with supports that reward planning and commitment. Then 6.7 delivers a major release that ties those ideas together. I'm curious how you're approaching this roadmap. Are you pulling early, or are you already looking ahead to 6.7? Let me know what you're planning. And if you want more breakdowns like this, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss future updates. Well, that's all for today. I'll see you in the next video. Bye! Lootbar is offering a special limited pack of 6,480 crystals for only $69. Compared to the $100 in-game price, that's a $31 saving. New users can still get an extra 10% discount. Returning Lootbar users now have access to exclusive coupons offering up to 8% off on top-ups. You'll find the link in the description.